They say you should never trust anyone completely, but I never expected my best friend to be the one to betray me. This is the story of how a lifelong friendship took a turn I'll never forget. My name is Emma, and I was 26 years old when my life was turned upside down by the person I trusted the most, which was my best friend, Anna. We had known each other since we were kids. Our parents were close friends, and we grew up in the same small town. Anna and I had always been inseparable, from childhood sleepovers to sharing our deepest secrets in high school. We even attended college together, and by the time I was 26, we were still living only a few blocks apart. Our friendship was built on trust, loyalty, and the kind of bond that people rarely experience. At that time, I had just started dating Mark, a guy I met through work. He was charming, handsome, and everything I had ever looked for in a partner. Mark and I hit it off almost immediately, and I couldn't wait to introduce him to Anna. She had been with me through every major relationship, and I knew she'd want to meet him. I thought it would be the start of something great, also a perfect balance between my best friend and my boyfriend. But something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that Anna didn't quite approve of Mark, even though she smiled politely whenever we were together. It was subtle, just a glance here or a comment there, but I began to notice her behavior changing whenever Mark was around. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself I was just being paranoid. But the more time I spent with both of them, the more I started to sense an unease. It all came to a head one evening when we were all at a party. It was a small get-together at one of our mutual friends' house. Mark had just stepped out to get drinks, and Anna pulled me aside into the kitchen. The look on her face wasn't one I'd ever seen before, but also something darker. Her eyes were wide, filled with urgency. "Emma, we need to talk," she said, lowering her voice so no one could overhear. "I don't trust him." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean? He's fine." Anna shook her head, her voice almost pleading. "No, Emma, he's hiding something from you. I can see it in the way he looks at you when you're not around. He's not the man you think he is." I wanted to brush her off, but there was something in her tone that made me hesitate. Anna had always been the cautious one, and I knew she cared about me more than anyone. But I had never seen her so worked up over something like this before. "Anna, you've known him for like 5 minutes. You can't just decide you don't like him because of something you feel." But Anna wasn't listening. She grabbed my hands, her grip tight and urgent. "I'm not saying he's bad, but there's something about him that's off. I don't want to see you get hurt." I sighed, irritated by her persistence, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she was right. I brushed it off for the rest of the night, convincing myself I was overthinking it. After all, what did Anna know that I didn't? But over the next few weeks, those feelings of doubt crept back into my mind. I started noticing small things that didn't add up, like little inconsistencies in Mark's stories and strange evasions when I asked him about his past. He was always so protective of his phone, often checking it or turning it face down whenever I was near. I felt a shift in our relationship, but I couldn't put my finger on why. Anna, of course, was quick to notice as, well, she would casually bring up things about Mark, asking questions about him that seemed innocuous on the surface, but were loaded with suspicion. "Has he ever been to New York?" she asked one day while we were grabbing coffee. "I heard he's from upstate, but he never talks about his family. Is that weird to you?" At the time, I thought it was just her way of looking out for me. But looking back, I can see now that she was planting seeds of doubt, manipulating me into questioning everything about Mark. I decided to confront him about it one evening when we were alone. We were sitting on the couch, watching TV, when I turned to him with a serious expression. "Mark, is there something you're not telling me?" He looked at me, a flicker of surprise passing over his face. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. It's just, I feel like I don't know you as well as I thought I did." You're so secretive. And I'm starting to get the feeling that you're hiding something." Mark's eyes widened, and for a moment I saw a flash of something I couldn't place. Is it fear? But then he quickly composed himself, putting on a reassuring smile. "Babe, there's nothing to hide. I've just been busy with work and, stuff. It's nothing serious." I nodded, but something in his voice didn't sit right with me. Still, I wanted to believe him. I didn't want to let my insecurities get the best of me, but Anna's warnings kept echoing in my mind. Then, a few nights later, I got a call from Anna. Her voice was frantic. "Emma, I've got something you need to see." She didn't explain much, but her urgency told me everything I needed to know. I rushed over to her apartment, where she had her laptop open, the screen displaying a video. My heart sank when I saw it. It was a grainy clip of Mark at a bar, talking to a woman who wasn't me. They were laughing, and he had his hand on her arm. It wasn't a friendly gesture, it looked intimate, like something more was going on. "Where did you get this?" I whispered, barely able to process what I was seeing. Anna's face was pale, but she looked satisfied. "I've been keeping an eye on his behavior. I knew something wasn't right. I told you he was hiding something. This is proof." My mind raced. My best friend had been spying on my boyfriend. She had taken matters into her own hands without telling me. The betrayal stung more than anything Mark could have done. I confronted Mark that night. When I showed him the video, he didn't deny it. "I was going to tell you," he said, but Anna made it harder. "She's always been jealous of me, and you know it." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about Mark. It was about Anna. She had deliberately tried to tear us apart, planting doubts in my mind and orchestrating this whole situation. She was the one who had betrayed my trust, not Mark. In the end, I broke up with both of them. But the damage was done. The pain of realizing that someone I had trusted with everything could turn on me was something I'll never forget. Sometimes, trusting a stranger feels like a leap of faith that will reward you. But what if that leap leads into a situation far more unsettling? This is the story of how I learned the hard way that not all kindness is what it seems. My name is Ryan, and I was 29 years old when my life took a turn I never saw coming. It all started with a simple act of kindness, a gesture that most people would consider harmless. Little did I know that one moment of trust would set me on a path to horror I couldn't escape. It was a rainy Thursday evening when I first met her. I was walking home from work after a long day, the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. The streets were nearly empty, save for a few cars and the occasional pedestrian rushing to get out of the rain. My phone had died, and I had no choice but to take the long route home, hoping to avoid the looming storm. That's when I saw her. She was standing under a streetlight, looking like she was waiting for someone, her posture stiff and unnatural. I couldn't help but notice how out of place she seemed in the middle of the street at that hour. Her clothes were soaked through, and her face was hidden behind wet, tangled hair. She looked lost. "Are you okay?" I called out, feeling a pull to help her despite the late hour. She looked up, startled. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide, and I could see the panic in them. She nodded quickly. "I'm fine. Just lost my way." I hesitated, unsure of what to do. It was raining harder now, and I knew she must have been waiting for a long time. I asked if she needed help, and that's when she made a strange request. "Could you walk me to my apartment?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I'm scared to go alone. It's just a few blocks from here. Please." I wasn't the type of person to turn down someone in need, so I agreed. We started walking together, and she told me bits and pieces about herself. How she had just moved to the area, how she didn't have many friends, and how she was feeling a little out of place in the city. Her story seemed genuine, and I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. She seemed like someone who had just lost her way in life. We walked for several blocks, and I noticed she was growing quieter the farther we went. It was almost as if she was nervous, unsure of what to say next. Her eyes darted from side to side, and she kept looking behind her as though she was expecting someone or something to be following us. "Is everything okay?" I asked, sensing the tension in the air. She smiled weakly. "Yeah, just a little paranoid. I've been having these bad feelings lately, like I'm being watched." Her words struck me as odd, but I shrugged it off. Everyone had their quirks, right? We turned onto a quieter street, and as we walked, I noticed something strange. The neighborhood was unusually quiet, as though everyone had gone inside. No cars passed by, no lights flickered in the windows. Just an eerie, suffocating silence. That's when I saw her apartment building. It was an old, dilapidated place, with peeling paint and dim lights coming from the windows. It looked abandoned, and yet she claimed it was home. "Here we are," she said, her voice suddenly cold. "Thank you for walking me. You've been so kind." I nodded, but something about her tone sent a chill down my spine. There was something off about the situation, something I couldn't quite place. But she was right in front of her building, and I was about to leave when she spoke again. "Would you like to come in for a coffee? I don't want to be alone tonight," she said, almost pleading. I felt an unease growing in my gut, but I ignored it. I didn't want to be rude, and it was just coffee, right? What could go wrong? I followed her up the stairs into the building. The hallway was narrow, and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. I tried to ignore the discomfort settling in my chest, but it was hard to shake the feeling that I was being drawn into something I shouldn't be part of. When we reached her apartment, she quickly opened the door and gestured for me to come inside. The room was dimly lit, with only a single lamp casting shadows across the walls. The furniture was sparse, and the whole place had a cold, empty vibe. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me standing there in the living room. I could hear the clinking of dishes and the sound of her moving around, but it felt like an eternity before she returned with 2 mugs in hand. "Here you go," she said, handing me one of the mugs. Her smile was forced now, her eyes glinting strangely in the low light. I took the coffee from her, trying to smile back, but my mind was racing. The atmosphere in the room felt heavy, and the silence between us was unbearable. I sat down on the couch, my eyes scanning the apartment for anything out of place. That's when I noticed a large mirror hanging on the wall opposite me. It was cracked, the jagged edges creating a grotesque pattern across the glass. But what caught my attention was the reflection. It wasn't mine. I could see someone standing behind me, their face obscured in the reflection. I whipped around, my heart pounding, but no one was there. I stood up quickly, my pulse quickening. "I think I should go now," I said, my voice trembling. The woman didn't respond right away. She stood there watching me. Her smile changed into something deeply unsettling. "Leaving so soon?" she whispered, her voice low and unsettling. I backed towards the door, my mind screaming at me to get out, but she stepped forward, blocking the exit. "You can't leave," she said quietly, her eyes narrowing. "Not yet." I shoved past her, adrenaline surging, and ran down the stairs as fast as I could. The hallway seemed endless, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the silence. When I reached the front door, I bolted outside, not stopping until I was a few blocks away. I never found out who she was or what she wanted, but that night I learned a terrifying lesson about trust. There are people who will use kindness in a deceptive way, using it as a weapon. And sometimes the perfect stranger isn't so perfect after all. Trusting the people who live closest to you is something we all do without thinking. But what happens when the person next door isn't the friendly neighbor they seem to be? This is the story of how a neighbor's kindness turned into a dangerous situation. My name is Jason, and I was 35 years old when my life was turned upside down by someone I never expected. It all started with a simple favor, which I thought was harmless. Little did I know, it would lead to an experience that stayed with me for years. I had just moved into a new neighborhood. After years of renting apartments, I was finally able to buy a small house on a quiet street. The neighborhood was peaceful, filled with families and retirees. It was the kind of place where you could walk your dog without worrying about traffic, where neighbors waved as they passed by. It felt safe. My next-door neighbor was an older woman in her early 60s. She lived alone, and we'd occasionally chat when we saw each other in the yard. She always seemed kind, smiling, waving, and inviting me over for tea every now and then. At first, I found her hospitality a little odd, but I thought nothing of it. She was just a lonely old woman, right? One evening, about 6 months after I moved in, I came home from work to find a note on my doorstep. It was from my old neighbor, Jason. "Could you please do me a small favor? My car broke down and I'm waiting for the mechanic to arrive, but I'm having trouble with a delivery that needs to be picked up. Could you please take care of it for me? I'll make it up to you, I promise." The note was odd. She didn't strike me as the type to ask for help so directly, but I was new to the neighborhood, and I didn't want to seem rude, so I decided to help her out. I figured it was just a quick errand. It was not a big deal. I went over to her house, where she greeted me warmly at the door. She led me into her home, a modest cottage with old furniture and a smell of vanilla and cinnamon wafting through the air. "The delivery is in the garage," she explained. "It's just a package that needs to be signed for, but I'm expecting some important guests and can't be bothered right now. Could you sign for it?" I nodded, thinking it was all pretty straightforward. Of course. She led me to the side door that opened into her garage, where a large box was sitting on the floor. I noticed a few other boxes stacked against the wall, but nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I picked up the clipboard next to the package, ready to sign for it, but before I could, she stepped forward. "Don't you want to look inside?" she asked, her voice oddly soft, almost whispering. I hesitated. "I don't need to, right? It's just a package for you. I'm happy to sign." She smiled, but there was something strange in her eyes, something that didn't sit right with me. "It's just a small favor. I insist," she said, her tone now more insistent. I shrugged, thinking it was just a harmless request, and lifted the flap of the box. But as soon as I did, my heart dropped into my stomach. Inside the box were several stacks of cash. Not a few bills, entire piles of them, wrapped in rubber bands. I stared, dumbfounded at the piles of money that seemed to fill the entire box. I had no idea what to make of it. My old neighbor must have noticed my confusion because she quickly closed the box. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice sharp now. "It's just a family matter. I need you to hold on to it for me, Jason, just for a little while." I didn't know how to respond. This wasn't just a favor anymore. There was something seriously wrong about the situation. The stacks of cash were too much, and the way she was acting made me feel uneasy. "I can't just take this," she said. "This could get me into serious trouble." I stammered, my mind racing. I tried to step away from the box, but she reached for my arm, her grip unexpectedly firm. "Please, Jason," she pleaded, her voice now tinged with desperation. "I don't have anyone else I can trust. It's just for a few days. You can leave any time, but I need you to keep it safe." I pulled away from her grip, my heart pounding in my chest. "No, this isn't right. I'm not getting involved in whatever this is." But before I could leave, I heard the sound of a car engine starting outside. Her face turned pale as she motioned for me to leave through the back door. "Hurry! They can't see you here. Please, just leave! Now!" The urgency in her voice froze me in my tracks, but I didn't need any more convincing. I turned and bolted out the back door, my pulse racing as I ran back to my house. My mind was spinning with confusion and fear. Over the next few days, I avoided her. I didn't want to get involved in whatever bad activity she was mixed up in, and I certainly didn't want to be a part of something that could get me into serious trouble. But one evening, just a few days later, I heard a loud knock on my door. I opened it cautiously. Standing there was a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and wearing a dark suit. He introduced himself as detective and asked if I had seen my neighbor recently. I felt my stomach drop. "What's this about?" I asked, trying to remain calm. "She's been missing," Detective explained, his face grim. "And we believe she's been involved in some serious criminal activities. I'm sorry to ask, but did she ask you to do anything unusual recently?" I froze. She asked me to hold on to something for her, which was a box of cash. The detective's eyes narrowed. "I thought so. That's exactly what we're looking for. She has been involved in long-term financial crime for years, and we've been trying to catch her. Looks like she used you as an unknowing pawn." I couldn't believe what I was hearing because of the kind neighbor I had trusted had been hiding a criminal enterprise right under my nose. The worst part was that I had almost gotten involved in it without even realizing. It turned out that she had disappeared days earlier, likely fleeing the authorities. I never saw her again. But the experience taught me a hard lesson about trust. Just because someone seems friendly, just because they live next door, doesn't mean they're trustworthy. Sometimes the person closest to you is the one who will drag you into the situations you never expected. If you've ever felt that uneasy feeling in your gut about someone close to you, these stories might make you think twice. Remember, not everyone who smiles at you has good intentions. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more related tales. And if you have your own true story of trust gone wrong, share it in the comments below.